Hello everyone, welcome to today's afternoon session as part of the buildingSMART International Standards Summit in Valencia 2024. Thank you for coming. My name is Ratnakar and I'll be your moderator today. Today's session titled Panel Discussion, Building a Standardized Future, the Power of Open Standards in Large-Scale Construction. I'd like to give a warm welcome to our speakers, Ratnakar Garikipati, Dr. Calvin Khan and Samuel Tiao. I will also hand over to Ian Howell, who will be giving an introduction to the session. Before I do, just to remind you that the session is scheduled to last 90 minutes, including time for questions, and the session is being recorded and will be made available in the replay section of the event as soon as possible, and will be available around 6 to 8 weeks after the summit on our YouTube platform. I would also remind you that this is a hybrid event. For online attendees, microphones will remain muted for the duration of the session. If you wish to make a comment or ask a question, please use the chat box in the control panel. And for the attendees here in the room, please keep background noise to a minimum. And if you wish to make a comment or ask a question, please raise your hand and we'll bring a microphone. I will also bring to attention that buildingSMART is committed to ensuring that participation in the development of standards is unrestricted, and the process for their adoption is transparent, and standards that are developed do not favour any particular provider and are open, non-binding and accessible to all. Please take note of our antitrust code of conduct. Now I'll hand over to Ian.
Very good. Thank you everyone for finding the room and for joining us. I have the job of doing a very brief introduction and then we'll hear from the experts. And I wanted to just start with the difference between knowing something works and then being able to prove it. So how many of you have had upper management conversations about why open standards, why buildingSMART? That's really, really hard to convince people. Yes, it's sort of half the room. And I think we're needing to have what I call more than the soft data. I think our awards program has been amazing in collecting success stories where we've had incredible projects and the teams have literally gone on record to say that we could not have delivered that project as efficiently and have captured the data we needed to capture. Auckland Airport, for example, have projects over many years, many different contractors, dozens and dozens of software applications, and they needed to bring all that together as a master plan for the airport and could only do that through IFC. So we know it works. We know that this can provide huge benefit. We run the awards program in different categories. Every year we'll be doing the same. You saw Aidan announce that the 2024 awards are open, and I encourage you all to participate. And this is giving us lots of stories. And stories of success are helpful, but they aren't enough. I think you've all witnessed to prove that it works. It's to show that it works. And there is really this distinct difference. So despite all of that good work, and you'll notice that in the 2024 award submissions, we're asking to get more ROI data, more return on investment data from you, because we're trying to get away from the stories, what I call the soft data, to having hard data, to being able to have some metrics and put some measurement in place so that that proof point for owners, for operators is there, and increasingly that they would specify the use of open standards, because it's not just understanding a set of benefits, it's actually having some measurable business value. So the hard data of cost savings, the hard data of time savings, where we can show reduced operating costs, where we can show repeatability. So we're on our mission to capture some hard data. I think what you're going to see today is a start down that journey in terms of being able to do some quantification. And this is all part of one of our 9 strategic projects. This is about capturing business value. So this is an effort that's in the top 9 things that we're trying to do, along with IFC 5, along with professional certification, along with all of the other things you've heard about. This is really, really significant and important because it will help us all accelerate the adoption by industry, because where that proof point for hard data ROI is there, there's going to be more motivation and more success. So today we're going to see how that's being done in Singapore and a couple of other examples, and the work that will continue to evolve as part of this strategic project. So thank you for being here to learn about this particular path, and hopefully we'll have results from this event. We'll have results from the 2024 awards, and we'll start to be able to publish that hard data that we all need as a proof point. So thank you for being here. With that, I'll hand over to the panel.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us. So, as Ian mentioned, there's so many parallel activities, and it's good to see that many of you here because you care about these important topics, about how do we drive business impact, business values on large, complex projects. So maybe just a quick show of hands. How many of you do work as an owner, as asset owners, running large projects? Like certainly, and your friends from EU, from US, and many other parts of the world. Great. How many of you may work on those projects from a design perspective? Design consultants, experts, yeah. And how many of you, I know some are coming from our construction partners, builders, contractors, subcontractors, quite a few. How about our education partners or solution providers, lawyers in the room? Any experts, partners, solution providers? Great. So, and how many of you did join our session yesterday and may have remember Samuel yesterday telling the Singapore story of Ratnakar, right here telling about the Report story. How many of you did join the session yesterday? Basically all of you. Good. So I think this is a perfect case for us to interact with those of you in the room. And thank you to our DSR staff for managing those of you joining us remotely from around the world. To really, I don't think we have PowerPoint examination or show. This may be my final slide here. And we can go in and have a deeper discussion with you all about what are some of the journeys, what are some of the challenges, what are some of the business impacts of managing large construction digital asset projects, and focusing on this story joining us yesterday about the Singapore story, the LTA story. And once again, this session is with you for you. We have a bunch of different slides that we can bring up to tell the story if the discussion or the questions warrant them. Otherwise, this is a session that we all can communicate, can help bring the open beam journey up together. And as you mentioned, not only making sure that we know how to do it, but then how do we work together to prove it, to make it more scalable and repeatable. So with that, please join me to welcome our panelists today, Samuel from LTA and Ratnakar from Big Farm. Thank you. So first of all, Samuel, it was great for me as the audience to hear about the story, about the LTA transformation. So for the benefit of me and possibly some of our audience, do you mind to maybe help reintroduce LTA? What do you do? Yesterday, I heard that you're managing billions of construction projects. You're extending railway lines, right? Can you tell us more about that?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Samuel. So in LTA, I lead the digital transformation for infrastructure development and information management for all our infrastructure projects, like the new projects. With the service introduction of LTA, with the exception of our defense budget, I think LTA is the largest government procurement entity in Singapore. So as what Ratnakar introduced yesterday, it is factual that we have budgeted about 60 billion dollars marked for our land transport development, as well as the net renewal works for real assets. And LTA is about 6,300 strong to do the land transport mobility policies, transport and active mobility operations and maintenance, except for rail. Rail, we have the public transport operators, two public transport operators who run our rail lines, and also most notably our infrastructure and development. So about 35% of LTA is involved in the infrastructure development, and in the infrastructure development cluster, we have run through a few projects. More recent ones are the North-South Corridor, which is about 21.5 kilometers long, stretching from north to south because of the North-South Corridor. It involves air as well as underground tunnels. And for the new projects for rail, is the Jurong Regional Line, which is about 24 kilometers long, and the Cross Island Line, which is about 58 kilometers long. And all this is about, we're going to build about 360 kilometers of rail network by 2030. And for us, those people involved in both these three key big projects, the Jurong Regional Line, the Cross Island Line, and also Corridor, so 3,000 people altogether involved in this project, including our external contractors, consultants, not just our LTA staff. This pretty much what LTA is about. Yeah.
Sounds good. And then for me, who was able to visit Singapore from time to time and just witnessing your transportation network, right, from the subway to the railway and of course all the highway community, all the collectiveness, and more importantly, the service that you offer. That's really amazing. So I remember that yesterday you were walking us through your transformation journey. But before we jump into it, do you mind to maybe remind us like what it was like before you embarked on that journey? So what was the legacy, culture like? What was the process like? How efficient or inefficient was that? Do you mind to maybe let us know what prompted you on this transformation journey?
Okay, so pre-BIM or pre-BIM models, I think all of you are used to familiar that 2D is basically with the microstation is the thing, and a lot of 2D drawings are produced. For all our past projects, the Thomson is co-signed early stages, along with downtown line projects, all these are delivered in drawings, right? And largely, they are all haphazard, as well as they are all in information silos. We do have a central repository for submissions from contractor to consultants LTA to do the design reviews, but those are in a one-way street kind of arrangement where we submit, but there's no collaboration. So practically, it's a key way of managing, and information-wise, it's hard to disseminate. And there are many, this is a bit of oxymoron, there are many single source of truths, many, because one knows updated versions of designs we speak about or implementations that we refer to. And because of that, I think it creates a lot of uncertainty sometimes. And as we reach the as-built stage, a lot of these projects, I think your resonate with most of you, that in as-built and maintenance stage, largely, it's tough to find real accurate information, especially services that's behind plannings or hidden from line of sight. Those things are uncertain. So thereby we have a lot of uncertainty in project development. It works, and I think in operation and things as well. Mm-hmm. So there is a need for us to look at how we have better information modeling management as well. And that's where I think when we embarked on a journey to learn about BIM in 2015, 2014, we visited Stanford. Some of my colleagues who assisted me went to Stanford to understand about BIM, and came back to introduce it progressively to learn about what value it brings to our organization and how we deliver projects. So that was in around 2014, and then we tried to introduce BIM in one of our in-house projects to experiment. And meanwhile, in 2015 for our Thomson East Coast line, we allowed contracted BIM implementation because I think we have a sense of how infrastructure can adopt it efficiently and be clear of standards. But in an era where there are many variants of our standards implementation, each contractor can have their own implementation of BIM. And thereby, as a client, you have a variety of quality, and it's really tough to reconcile. So that's where in 2019, where we had I formed this department called the BIM project and governance office, and this way we explore how we propagate and create policies around it, so that we can work on a more informed project management approach and this is also true for the long run. Yeah.
So indeed, I think I wonder how many of you may resonate with what we just heard from Samuel. So what I heard is that there are many potential confusion in terms of what's the single source of truth. It's a lot of maybe tribal way of individual manual way of doing things, that depending on which maybe your project managers and your officers, they all may be reviewing submissions, maybe approving that kind of like based on the heroic kind of like workflow, right? So I wonder how many of those may resonate. For sure, you resonate a lot with me. When you talk about we were able to work together over the years with Stanford University in Singapore, LTA, that in our community, like when we work with pharmaceutical companies or government agencies, we heard that once an asset is delivered, you may start to get hundreds of confusing sources of confusion. Because you have lots of maintenance work, you have lots of alterations coming up, and they'll be referred to it, and you start to lose track of that, right? And then when you work with global theme park companies, it's like they are all doing lots of good things, but it's all based on the tribal knowledge of the individual heroic PMs, right? So I wonder how many of you may relate to this kind of like some of the legacy nature of what LTA was experiencing. Or you're already transforming and seeing a much better way of doing things, right? So, which is why I would love to hear that. Fast forward, when you told us about the LTA journey, like on the left-hand side, you have like all this build-up. Can you share with us what is the recipe of success, right? What is the recipe that as we try to standardize, as we try to improve upon that legacy pain points, what is the recipe? Do you want to share that with our audience?
Yeah, I think firstly, at any given point in time, which is today actually, we facilitate about 200 to 300 contracts for infrastructure development and running parallel, right? And on top of that, we also have about 3,000 staff working on those projects, as I said earlier, internal and external. So that creates a conundrum of how do we organize things, right? And how do we make it efficient and make sure we share information properly. So when we set off as to what would this 3,000 people in turnout of 2,000-ish, and we have about 40 divisions of user groups that bring along this journey, it is quite heavy for us to to have this change management introduced to this whole organization. So what we actually try to do is to bring a firstly the proposition and explain what really brings to the table, and create this vision for LTA to subscribe that this is something that we should work on for the sake of longevity in terms of our information that we can benefit from, projects up to our operation and maintenance. And I'll show you the next slide is that this is actually a very big piece of art, again, in my view. What it does is actually shows the extensiveness of how we engage the various 40 user groups, the thousands of people, to ensure that we understand the past practice, which is on 2D BIM, or 2D drawing, sorry, 2D, and then how do we explain the whole journey and how it should look like in 3D. So that involves many nautical touch points and hundreds of workshops extending with each time of 20, 15 to 20 people in these workshops as we keep wrap up the digital journey and the user journey and to this ecosystem that we're trying to create. So what you see is that there are different levels of use cases as well as different levels of user groups and different roles in the organization, right? And that gives you a broad canvas of how complex this development of changing mindsets and shaping new behaviors and getting buy-ins to the organization and how this can benefit us in the long term. So technology is one thing, but I think we also cannot be digitizing manual processes digitally because it defeats the purpose, right? I think you're all in the room. And having the need to we process redesign some of those practices where it was valid maybe in the 2D world where you work with 3D drawings, but if you want to look at a more collaborative way of approaching, we need everyone to bring everyone aboard this journey to understand how a BIM works. It is something new to this large body organization. So, as I said, well, we explored this in-house project at the beginning, the northeast line extension, a single station, but then only limits to a certain pool of people. As we expand this further from the rail to the roads infrastructure development, it takes a different shape, and it has a lot of intertwined consideration that we have to consider in our rolling out of solutions and standards, and at the end of it, a platform that everyone can work and collaborate with. So, in the course of finding out the best balance between manual practices and digital workflows, and yet being a government organization where we have to have check and balances along the way. So, how do we have this audit trail captured within the system to assure that decisions are made very rigorously and as well as very true to the intent of the decisions? It's quite a daunting task for us. And having digital tools like OpenBIM helps to bridge that gap in terms of communication between the different contractors interfacing on the project. It can be multifaceted, and this OpenBIM helps us to make it simpler to converse in the needs of each other's parties and how we deliver the projects so that we are moving it in the right direction to ensure success of the project.
Well, thank you, Samuel. So yesterday, I remember some of your soundbites, that being one of the first in Singapore as an agency to start to adopt mandates OpenBIM, and at the same time that you are transforming, right? Also being embracing the ISO 19650 workflow and really looking at that from the legacy way of kind of like heroic tribal knowledge into a more systematic way, and sure to let us know that appreciate it's about the people, it's about the workflow, it's about how you put your energy also to design for this ecosystem to make it repeatable. So as Ian reminded us, do you start to know or realize the benefits or the disadvantage of doing that? What may be the benefits or the impact so far in terms of the business, in terms of the process, where you are today, and also where you expect to be? I understand that all of us are here because it's a journey. It's a journey to continue to innovate, to adopt, to digitalize. What may be your expected kind of like benefits, expected impacts once a journey is even more mature and more diffused?
Okay, so even we get there, I think what we explained a little bit about process, people, and technology. I think where it's important for us is to pin our processes, inform the structure, where we adopted now ISO 19650 as a practice, which the next slide will show. To review a BIM process, right? There are many meetings, there are a lot of processes, and a lot of versioning to ensure that audit trails are kept to its true form, to know where decision points are, right? For us to move towards digital fully, we need to have assurance that the formula works, all right? And that's where we see OpenBIM and ISO. It gives that clarity and I would say dependency on us to rely on to ensure what we produce will take us through the long run. So in where we see success will come in its form is that when we do all this versioning and all do the I would say close control of our production of information for our projects, it gives us that output, the quality output, to ensure that we are not going to rely on multiple source of individual information, but it takes us through the whole journey with a form that we know what's accepted, what's rejected. And the quality that we talk about is to ensure the long run, the deliverables are of a certain standard, but yet we still know that there are things that we can improve as an industry, right? In terms of that's why I shared yesterday, the model quality, information quality, and that takes a different form of rigor. Where we are now, I would say that in terms of implementation of BIM and its ability for us to deliver better project in terms of abortive works downstream, I think we're pretty much certain with these clash detections and clash conversations that we have in our value chain. And it gives us that acquisition, these solutions that helps document all this very clearly for us.
If I can chime in,
Yeah,
please, yeah. So if we can actually go back to this one here. So this is a service journey that LTA has embarked on. As part of that, I mean, different people within LTA, those are the pain points, right, that we had to tease out. And then basically we had to understand and be very clear with the stakeholders at LTA in terms of what would it really take for 200 contracts across 2 airlines, for them to be standards. So it's basically, we didn't want different workflows for different contracts. We didn't want internal users across 40 divisions to be able to work differently. Right? So that's the challenge. Okay, what does it mean? How do we then apply OpenView in a way that basically all 40 internal divisions and their staff and the contractors are able to seamlessly collaborate within the context of ISO 19650. You take that times 200 contracts they have. From basically the design all the way through to the handover, it's about storytelling. It's about basically not just having a bunch of BIM models as they change hands from design to construction to as-built to handover. It's not about recreating those models over and over again. That's not what ISO is telling us. What it is actually saying is, if we can bring trust to different parties that engage on each contract, to trust the models, so that when they pass over, the other one can basically pick up and enhance and enrich it with the information that they need to, and then pass it on to the next one, and then the next one. Instead of actually each party recreating it because they don't actually trust what's in the past to them. So this goes to basically the crux of what ISO says and what BIM can bring to the table as opposed to your proving plan, sheets and drawings and so on. So how do we take this, what the ISO is saying? How do we then actually put into perspective what the feedback is from the organization by way of pain points and so on, and the contractors? And how do we then lay the foundation in a way that if I have to actually unlock the next improvement or innovation on the back of BIM, I don't have to go back to 40 divisions again, undo what I've given them, and say, hey, by the way, we have to change your interface, we have to change the user experience to give you that marginal uplift, which is where usually the enterprise implementations fail, right? This applies to whether it's asset owners or operators or consultants who are actually involved in multiple projects, where you would have different teams delivering different projects, bringing their own kind of past habits to the table, and also trying to basically accommodate some of what the client's nuances are. It's a complex kind of a playbook for contractors also. They have to basically marry what the clients expect. Different clients expect the contractors to actually deliver differently, right? The nuances are different, the behaviors are different, the procurement practices are different. But yet, internally, how do they standardize? Is a question that most contractors that we work with, including China Construction and so on, ask us and we work with them. Same thing goes to the consultants, right? When they're involved in multiple projects with multiple contractors and multiple clients. So what we wanted to basically share together is the standards are there, to apply it at scale, which we will further actually get deeper into as the conversation progresses. It is not about whether it can be done, it's about when can we do it and how can we do it. And I think we wanted to basically compliment Offense and buildingSMART with all the great work that they're doing, to be able to actually bring such examples to the table where it's being done at scale so that they can actually evangelize that for the community, to be able to actually help the community that's been actually so heavily invested and involved with buildingSMART. So I think basically that perspective is very important. As we step through the remaining kind of aspects of the discussion, you will be able to correlate back to what I just said about Samuel. Sorry, Samuel.
So I think the thing with this notion of having standard as well as the taxonomies, simple projects in the past, there are multiple taxonomy we use, and every project has its own set of taxonomies. So today, I think through ISO 19650, so as a BIM, we've standardized the way we have naming conventions for all our projects, for rail, for roads, for location codes, everything within a stream of 9 segments of the file naming convention. And that helps to keep that source of information within the platform of insight through itself. So it's easy for us to refer, and it's going to be replicated for all future projects. So thereby this standard brings us knowledge for the long term with all our development work.
Wow, so I think what I'm learning, and would love to see what you learn and what your own perspectives may be, is that yes, buildingSMART provide us with the open BIM workflows, right? The IFC, the amount of the workflow, the PCM, the MRDSC, like. Yet to really make it work at scale and come up with a more bulletproof way of doing that, we need to bring the design thinking, right? What do the ultimate customers, the ultimate products look like, or the pain points, right? We need to think about scalability and repeatability. It's not just working customized for one particular project, one particular station, or one particular highway, but to really think about all tens or hundreds of them and how to standardize the workflow. And you need the partnership that is not only the owner or the innovation champion working in their own universe. You need to work with kind of like across your value chain and partners like other government agencies, like solution providers, like builders. So speaking of a solution provider, it's also very interesting to see how Ratnakar, it's also kind of like elevating this way of collaboration, right, by bringing your expertise and the value. So maybe I understand that Ratnakar, you've also been working a lot with like in New Zealand and Singapore, a lot with agencies and large projects like LTA. So what do you see as some of the common challenges and opportunities working on large, complex projects, more than just a project at a time, right, enterprises, right? And also what maybe your take in terms of what makes LTA unique, special? What are some of the accomplishments that you can share with us?
Yeah, I think basically, if anybody were to solve this problem for an enterprise, or an asset owner, or yourself as contractors or consultants, one thing that you have to keep in mind is you can't just solve it for yourself and for your organization. You have to solve it for the ecosystem that engages you, whoever that is. That is very important. It's not about meeting my requirements. Yes, LTA, they look at it from their pain points point of view, in terms of how they can deliver and monitor the delivery of these projects. But the thing is, they have to bring along the ecosystem with them, otherwise it gets severe pushback. I mean, these contracts are pretty hefty in nature, right? With very rigorous kind of delivery schedules. Nobody's going to basically take the risk of in accepting to use a solution asked of you to be used if you didn't think it's going to work for you. So we were very cognizant of the fact that when you have 200 contracts and you have contractors and less subcontractors, and in some instances, a contractor in a contract A is a subcontractor in contract B, and vice versa, and they play different roles. There are line-wide and system-wide contracts that actually cross-cut entire lane lines, versus basically discrete contracts where the contractors can come and basically deliver and go. So there are layers and layers of basically things that we need to look at. You know, at the moment, right, for 200 contracts, or at least we rolled out about 150. At least, yeah, so they've got 50 more to go for these rail lines. Each contractor has a workspace, right? If they have multiple divisions, they will have different workspaces. And the contractors basically submit and collaborate directly with ATA. So this is deployed in Singapore's, you know, US federal cloud equivalent. They call it government commercial cloud, provided by Microsoft Azure. But with the additional checks and balances that Singapore government actually imposes, that any solution that gets deployed for authorities or agencies use NAT compliance, which makes it, you know, I mean, there was no precedent earlier in Singapore allowing an organization like ATA with 40 divisions, allowing them to be able to collaborate with the ecosystem that's so vast. Most of Asia's consultants and contractors from Japan, Korea, China, and different countries are involved in ATA projects like China Railway, to China Construction, and many, many more. So how do we do this? How do you make sure that the data resides in Singapore, both in transit and egress? How do you make sure that the contractors, you know, safely and securely communicate with the ATA? And how can we give the ATA the assurance that this system is not actually prone for vulnerabilities with all best efforts? So these are some of the basically considerations that we have to take on board. But the real kind of, for us, at LeapTalk, we believe that complex problems should have simple solutions. Just because the problem is complex, the solution shouldn't be complex. Especially when we are talking about change management for such masses. Over and over again, we have to be able to train onboard new contracts, right? Efficiently, without much friction. We have to have a well-oiled machine, but yet the framework that we lay has to continuously unlock the continuous improvement progressively over time. So basically, I will explain the entire LTA implementation in this one slide. So if you look at on the left side, so let's say these are stages in the construction. Different organizations in different countries have called these differently, but by and large, there's stages. Let's say we start with preliminary and conceptual design. What happens is the contractors and consultants submit to ATA. Submissions come, they basically reach the divisions within ATA for review and approval. Understood, right? Everybody understands that. There's no magic in it. But then again, when the submissions reach the ATA users, they shouldn't have a repository of build models for files that they received here. They shouldn't have a workflow here. They shouldn't actually open up those files in different viewers to be able to make sense of it. And then basically at the end of the day, synthesize all the information that they need to synthesize and then issue back a response, right? Including the BCFs and so on. So the user interface is very simple. So you have a browser. Browser allows you to receive a federated submission with federated models, both comprised of 2D and 3D, with specifications and method statements and so on. So submission files. Files, when you click on those files, one or more, you need to be able to federate in the browser. So the 40 divisions within ATA, when they receive the submissions, they will be able to actually federate in the browser. So if you're a mechanical MEP, you'll be able to see the MEP features and turn things off that are not relevant for you. If you're an architect, you need to get a personalized kind of an experience by allowing you to turn on and off what you don't need. So being able to, using Navisworks or something like that next to my desktop to actually combine what I get and then send the coordinated model to somebody else for them to review is not going to cut it. when you have 40 divisions and 200 contacts. We had to basically democratize this by actually bringing the browser into equation. So how do you then actually allow for browsers to be able to load complex civil infrastructure models, the train stations, the tunnels, allow basically engineers to be able to slice dice the models, interact with it, query it, interrogate it, and then create BCFs within the browser. When they create the BCFs, they're within the browser, but also other divisions who need to coordinate with what I have to say to be able to see those BCFs, so that we can coordinate together and issue a response for a resubmission. When a resubmission comes, how do you actually do the model compare in the browser? Right? I asked you to move this from here to there. I got a resubmission. Has it been moved, color coded, geometrically, as well as the changes in the attributes? So this is the foundation that we delivered to all the contracts. Now, all of these 150 contracts, their internal 40 divisions and users, and the community now have this capability. Now that's basically the bedrock, as I call it, or the backbone, which is completely open in nature, because to allow for browsers to be able to help you visualize the models, and also allowing the future kind of innovation, it has to be open standards. Hence, basically, we work together with LTA in ensuring that basically all the submissions are IFC driven. They also are, the contractors are expected to provide the native as well as IFC files, which get infused into the system. One of the things we say is, okay, the future possibilities is what? You might want to validate the models by checking against the EIR, right? The exchange information requirements or employer information requirements, the project information requirements, and also the asset information requirements down the lane. So to be able to do that, we need to basically, when we receive the BIM models as submissions, we need to basically preserve the IFC files, because that's like for record as to what was submitted, what version was submitted. But then again, we extract all the information in BIM, both geometry and the data, and push it into a smart data hub, which is actually used for faster indexing of all the data that gets ingested into it. Because by pushing the data into it for each version, each iteration of the submission that's actually provided to LTA, you have now the knowledge base of your engineering data, which you didn't have before if you actually continue to use 2D. So we basically bashed our heads together and we said, hey, this is not something that we can actually retrospectively put in place, because this is a foundational item, we need to do it day one. So we made sure that on the day that LTA went live, they had all these goodness in the browsers, being able to federate, create issues, collaborate, issue back a BCF, and then get a resubmission back, model compare, with all the data basically ingested into Smart Data Hub. Now, if you see that as a pattern, right, whether you're doing preliminary or conceptual design related collaboration, or design, detail design, or construction or handover, it's the same pattern over and over and over again. Same browser, same submission I receive, I process it consistently, regardless of where I come in and what and who I am in the horizontal process. Now that it is rolled out, it opens up to the possibility of getting into the trenches of the data. That's the benefit of BIM. BIM is not about the file, it's about what's in the file and what can it tell me, and what can I do with it, what kind of analysis I can perform. How can I then basically get machine to actually make sense of it? How can then actually, not only basically do advanced analytics, but also do complex kind of geometrical checking, not just basic hash detection for soft and hard hashes. A bit more than that. You'd be able to actually look at the material that's in there. You'd be able to actually allow LTA to make better informed decisions about the subsequent contracts and cost. This applies to consultants and contractors also in terms of what they deliver. If you know what you're delivering, if you can actually get machine to make sense of what you're delivering across your contracts, you will save a lot of money. If you are actually applying BIM for the sake of BIM and you think it is a file, you're actually just ticking a box. You're not really making use of the modern technologies and the technological advancements and opportunities that are there, because you start to ingest the data into a smart data hub and you ask a clever engineer to say, hey, tell me what you can do with it. You engage 5 engineers, 5 of them will actually come up with 5 different use cases that can drive significant benefits to you guys. But that's got to be the foundation. The foundation needs to be laid. Who knows? I don't know. As Lee thought, Samuel would know what the future possibilities of what one can do with the data. So I just wanted to basically take the opportunity together with Samuel to share with you all, saying that the buildingSMART is doing a great job, but what it needs is good use cases like this, which is going to basically help tease out. So now that we have the data coming into the platform, you have the ecosystem at the top, and then you have basically all these things that you can perform on it. It's a progressive, continuous uplifting journey. You know, I was at SciFi together with Calvin. I spent a lot of time in the robotics lab. We are now even thinking, you know, can we have a robotic twin, a robot in the software, a robot out there on the construction site, not to actually take away the job of the contractors, but actually to help contractors do an effective job. Is that too far-fetched? Now I have the data. I have the geometry of this building, right? I can basically have a software twin, like a robotic twin in software, living in this building, knowing this building, you know, including the escape path from a fire point of view, or looking at obstructions for sprinklers, or God knows what. I'm sure a physical robot can emulate what it does, so a software robot does out there. Because it comes down to the familiarity when it comes to robotics. So just a few kind of possibilities, because I think there's a lot that BIM can offer, in my view. So I can carry on like this, and we can do a very deep dive demo of what it looks like, what the implementation looks like, and give you scenarios almost across all of these. But I think the imagination is actually up to you guys. It's left. We want to leave it to you guys. We are here to help. Samuel also, we have been constantly discussing about talking to other asset owners and operators and collaborating with them to look at actually what we can learn and bring back, because we have the foundation, we've done the good work. In terms of the full stack AI, the next kind of next 3 to 4 months, we will be, I can guarantee that entire Singapore's construction industry is going to have a beautiful conversational AI experience in our viewers, both the core text you've heard, the regulatory, as well as all of the ATS communities going to enjoy it. So that's at the top of the stack in the browser. If you then start to drop, right, it's about the machine now basically picking the model apart and being able to actually review and analyze and check against the requirements from an asset information point of view, right? The full stack AI, a lot of people talk about generative AI from more a clerical point of view, of help you write a document or prepare a content. No. It's about actually helping the engineers do their job better. That's where the opportunity is, and you can only achieve that through BIM. And you can only achieve that through open BIM, not through proprietary BIM models. So I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Autodesk and Bentley and some of these proprietary vendors It's not that I don't want to name and shame anybody here, but the pressure's got to be on it to be able to open up for better interoperability. I was talking to Neil earlier, the great work that they're doing as part of the Open Data Alliance, allowing for interoperability across different proprietary formats, unlocks a lot of goodness. So yeah, please basically stay in tune with Lead Thought. This is a great case study. You've heard a bit about the regulatory national platform we rolled out for Singapore and Politics. I personally moved myself to US a year and a half ago because I spent 5 years in Singapore to mobilize and transform the sector. So now, I used to live in New Zealand, and then en route to US, I parked myself in Singapore for 5 years to stay true to some of these transformation stories and opportunities. We wanted to basically really do justice because I hold Singapore very dearly in my heart because it's a very efficient country. The ministers at the top conceived something called Construction Industry Transformation Map, and they underpin it with an integrated digital delivery framework, which they make sure that all of their technology operators, the CEOs, champion, because the Singapore government is basically the largest construction company, if you can think of it that way, in Singapore. So US, I'm talking to many clients in the US at the moment. We have a great team here. They'll also be able to tell you. We are in advanced discussions with many in the US. You'll soon see us basically transforming the US. We want to be able to transform it at the same rate at which we transform Singapore, albeit it's a big country, and we're ready for the challenge. So Europe's also, which is why we picked 5 chapters with buildingSMART. We want to go into the trenches with you guys. Yeah.
So thank you for sharing the Singapore, the LTA story. To respond to Ian's opening, I also want to share some of the metrics and some of the business capturing work that my team has done for the last 10 years or so. Again, taking the Singapore, in this case, not only LTA, the Border Singapore example. And then we'd love to hear from the audience, how much of those do we resonate with you? And also from our speakers that in the grand scheme of things, what would the ultimate success metrics be like, right? So over the last 10, 15 years, my team, we have been working with former CEOs of Building Construction Authority, and we work on a number of leadership courses to bring them out to Stanford University, and those of us also went over to Singapore. We work with lots of leaders from your former colleagues, LTA, JTC, BC, and a number of them. And to respond to Ian's earlier questions, at that time, our research group and my consulting group, we're trying to standardize, can we come up with, say, 10 KPIs to measure, to give us the temperature of how well we are adopting BIM, open BIM, process, people, technology. And we then worked with the Singaporeans, again, 5-10 years ago, and we came up with a good colleague of mine, Tony Ranella, some of you may know. We came up with the term decision doability. Sometimes it's not only about how quick you can make decision, that's part of the ICE concept, but once you make a decision, does it stay? Does it stick? Will you be having abortive rework afterwards, right? So turn out that as we look into some of the Singaporean professionals coming from government agencies like LTA and also private sectors, that 31% of their decisions were ultimately had to be revisited. So it's one thing to use all the technology to make quick decision, but it's another thing to make good and informed and lasting decision. So that's one thing we found. And then we work with the team to say that, well, how reliable its different transmission, transaction, and commitment reliability. We take a lot, like in the 1990s, my research lab at Stanford, we're looking at the lean and the production way, and then how to also bring in some of those lean mindset and metrics. It turned out that only 61% of the projects, if you look down to individual processes, right? Again, that's 5-10 years ago, maybe during that legacy days that Sam was talking about. only 61% of the mini kind of like activities, commitments could be completed on time. Again, from Singapore in collaboration with BCA, and globally, we also work a lot with like the Disney, the Bechtel, lots of our friends in Europe and other parts of the world. But on the other hand, when we poll the same audience, are you happy with your current capital project? They were actually giving a pretty nice 3.5 out of a 5 scale. So I was saying that, well, to that audience 5-10 years ago, that if I came in with, say, I don't know, Singapore Airline or take the MRT, the subway system in Singapore, if the train provider told me that I'm only 61% on time for my flight or for my MRT ride, I would be very, very unhappy. I don't think I'll be give myself a green light. So the question we had at that time with the Singaporeans were that, why are we so forgiving? Why are we so forgiving with our capital projects that are 60% on time, right? So fast forward, as Ian mentioned, with Clive, with Ian, we're working with buildingSMART to challenge about how we are realizing, measuring, capturing, standardizing metrics over different open BIM projects across different countries, across different locations. So indeed, our community, we are trying to actually put our boots in the ground, working with some partners here to actually start to understand not only the open BIM story, but the open BIM metrics. So far, these are work in progress. Actually, as we are meeting here, I think our teams are also doing some of the interviews, some of the hard data capturing out in Singapore. But then some early numbers were showing that we are able to get 80% time saving with defect reporting, 90% time saving with collaborative design approval, 30 to 40% time savings on topic or issues resolutions, 80% time savings to report safety incidents, right? So how do these relate to your own journey? Are we happy with 60% commitment reliability? Or do we even know your commitment reliability? So in our research, in our practice, we've come up with 8 categories of how we talk about benefits and impacts. It may be time, it may be money, it may be life cycle kind of like sustainability, it may be safety, it may be about talent and management and profitability, many other fronts. So we are only starting to build up the puzzles with the Singapore story, working with the community in Singapore. And indeed, they park well to safety, to decision making, and to project delivery. But we are also aware that there may be some thing what we call controllable metrics versus outcome metrics. What you can control, what you can change, so that can lead to good outcome, right? And so we do see that some production metrics are about reducing certain processes from minutes, 30 minutes down to 5. But in the end, it's about the outcome. Can we improve the quality assessment, not only the initial approval, but ultimately the full life cycle quality? And vice versa, is it about not only reporting any potential safety hazard or red flag, but actually reducing ultimately any safety or injury incidents? So I think as Ian mentioned, or as Clive mentioned yesterday, it's a strategic project that we cannot do it alone. We want to team up with you, not only with Singapore, not only with LTA, but can we find the LTA peers, like those in the US or in other parts of the world or in Middle East, right? And so ultimately, how we can turn some of these intuitive benefits that we may benefit from as-built verification, we may benefit from improving the ultimate value of your asset, right? So we may have some hunch about some of these, but how can we quantify them so that we can really see the power of open, the power of open BIM, not only for those of us who believe in it, but as Leah mentioned, how do we articulate that? How do we bring it back to the C-suite, or ultimately, like in Samuel's case, to your public? Because you and many other peers of yours are really being the good custody of the taxpayers and the public funds, right? So at this point, I want to check to see any feedback from those joining us online, but more from our peers in this room. Any questions for the Singapore case or to this kind of like metrics that we've been working on? Or can you share what may be your journey of your digital transformation or some of the metrics that you may be using? So please introduce yourself. Right.
By the way, he was behind me in lunch.
Hi there, Andrew Gavin from Wales. Something that's super interesting to me is, have you heard the phrase the carrot and the stick? So, basically the carrot is like your people on the journey with you.
Carrot and
The stick
stick.
is kind of like you're bringing people on the journey even if they're resisting.
Yeah.
When you were rolling this stuff out within the LTA, to what extent did you have to use a carrot and to what extent did you have to use a stick to get this to work?
Okay, this is rather a tough and sensitive question to answer. Yeah, so I think we first have to paint and explain the carrot, or the merit of doing what we are doing, because there's no comparison in the past. And I think one thing's for sure, we have to explain to our stakeholders and our own internal staff that BIM doesn't reduce the design stage time. In fact, it takes longer than the typical 2D drawing kind of production work. But however, what it does almost guarantee is that it reduces the abortive work and downstream snowball effects of bad decisions you made in the design phase. So that's something that we have to advocate. The problem with infrastructure or any building projects, you can't possibly build up a project in 2D, demolish it, then build a 3D and then compare the benefit. You cannot do that. So you have to bring that along. At some point in time, I think we have to, for those who are not really falling in line, but rather not really subscribing to the vision of what we're trying to put out, the stick is in the form of our processes that we introduce to ensure that we shape their behavior progressively, gently, but not overbearing. You know what I mean? So it has to take stock. Everybody will understand, have to pay to the what my CEO always told us, right? That how do we explain the benefits and open and whatnot to the guy on the ground who's going to use it. This benefit has to resonate with them and they subscribe to it. But and that often it takes a lot of effort to articulate this to them and to demystify it to that level where they will appreciate it. Yeah.
And as a follow-up, did you find that those who may have been resistant to begin with, when they understood it, when they had the light bulb moment, it became much easier for them to then use the systems to then progress it out to all their friends? It was almost like a snowball type thing.
So we always try to find, like, in design, we try to find change agents, try to identify those who are more forward-looking. And I think largely you find those in the digital native generation, right? So there are areas where colleagues of mine who are a bit less familiar with digital tools, they will have that initial resistance, but it takes a lot of hand-holding, right? And typically, these guys are the ones that if you can bring them across the river to the next end of the dry land, you'll see that there's a greener pasture there, and that's where they'll be advocates for you. So that's where we try to find these kind of opportunities with different colleagues, and they will help to advocate this positive work that we do to this peers and whatnot.
Can I ask a question just related to that question?
Please use the mic, introduce yourself. We have remote participants. Yeah, just give us 2 more seconds. Please introduce yourself.
I'm actually from Utah, but I was not in the Singapore experience. But following up on this question, which I think is great, what was the training experience like? I mean, part of that hand-holding is also helping people learn the system. What was that process like?
So when we first roll out Insight using digital collaboration tool, and onset we've identified about 7 contracts to start off with. These are greenfield projects, meaning that they just got awarded and they just haven't started off. So we can go the journey quite easily and quite quickly. It took a lot of hand-holding to the point of sitting down with them in workshops and I would say consultation facilities to walk them through, explain to them how to do submissions, go down to the floor with the project teams and the contractors, how to use the review tools. And a lot of this takes a lot of getting used to because it really is a different way of working. And as we go along with it, to do this level of guidance, it's going to be not sustainable in the long term. is quite resource extensive and intensive. So we created bite-sized modular training videos to help guide them, and they can refer it to and follow the notes that they go through on a regular basis to help shape that delivery of their work that they do. Again, when we roll that out in a bigger way, it's more sustainable, but yet we know that those who are not digital natives or they are less comfortable with digital tools, they tend to fall off. Not because that they feel that, okay, I'm not getting this, it's too much trouble. They slowly want to revert back to the 2D way of doing. And we have to really identify these colleagues of ours who are struggling with it, understand why, and we are going to look into a different form of rehabilitation kind of work, because we fall back to old habits, right? So we need to figure out how to rehab them and ensure that we prescribe the right means of training them to ensure that they are able to do it. So that involves going back to some of these, sitting down beside them, walking through the process, having more community of practice where we hold sessions, workshops with like 50 people, walking them through different stages of the design process, what tools we have in our system, and giving them a bit more bite-sized and classroom kind of guidance.
Please introduce yourself and wait for the mic.
Thanks a lot, Jorge Camilo Diaz from CEMEX, as a manufacturer supplier. Okay, my question is, how do you handle the, let's say, the externals, let's say, subcontractors or manufacturers, or I can imagine a lot of different external people that they require to collaborate in a way that they are not used to. Maybe they don't have the means, they don't have specific software, but also the deliverables that you need to ask them, and they will give to the main contractor or, I don't know, directly to the FTA. So how did you manage that part? Because it's always like a tricky topic.
Yeah, it is. So in LTA, almost our infrastructure projects today are all based on design and build, right? So we have a main com that we work closely with. Of course, they have their own value chain, their own subcontractors, and their task team, in what we call SO terms. We will still bring them into the insight, and a large part of our procurement documentation, we stipulate that the files that we want to receive for the digital deliverables from the contractors are all IFCs. That's a key collaboration software, or file type we want for that, along with the native files like your Autodesk or your Bentley software control. So we have both kind of information for us to compare and check. With what we have with Insight, powered by Fulcrum's, or Detox Fulcrum HQ product, as what Ratnakar mentioned, is all on the web-based browser. Everything is accessible, and it's all using the IC files that we're going to coordinate and collaborate with. So same thing goes for their subcontractors. We allow them access to the contractor's environment, workspaces, and it's structured in such a way that the contractor is the main point is the one who's going to be the decision-making transfer to us. So we're not going to police our contractors on their work in progress designs. We are only going to start looking at it from the submission stage. In the ISO, there's a work in progress, right? Then after that, we will not look at the work in progress, we look at the submission, the sharing stage, then the approval stage, and then we follow by the archival stage. So we are looking at it very clearly on what we need as the client to review those submissions. And when we talk about software, being software agnostic and whatnot, because IFC is open BIM, so it's quite useful for us. We do have in Insight an additional capability called the Virtual Desktop Interface, or VDI. This where it's a compartment where users can or contributors can use the Insight to open up the native files in a VDI. It's all in a ecosystem or web-based ecosystem. You don't need high powerful laptops which cost 5 kilograms that hurts my hand so right now with this lab. You don't need that. It's really, if you want to go, you need to find iPads. Yeah, so that helps that bridging of file types or even the kind of formats that you submit. Yeah.
Good. We have a question from Harvard. Please, Ratnakar. Yeah.
So, we have another client similar to LTA in Singapore. They do greenfield estates in terms of manufacturing and industrial corridors. Calvin knows them, JTC. So for them, in fact, our GM for Asia is in the room. He'll be able to tell you that we also actually have something called design for manufacturing and assembly module. That allows the main con to be able to collaborate with the manufacturers and suppliers, including payment to track the material, and the delivery orders to fulfillment and all. So, if you like further information, happy to this. Yeah, thank you.
Howell, please introduce yourself.
So I'm Howell from Catenda in Norway. It's a follow-up question on this. There is a standard, so we spend a lot of our own time helping to design and build the standards of buildingSMART. And one of them is the OpenCV API. I think that's a very sort of hidden gem in the buildingSMART ecosystem, and it's not really utilized to unleash the power it can. So a question to LTA, if you have been thinking about pushing that OpenCV API to not only the main software to collaborate on, but all the other software vendors, so that you can exchange files, you can communicate, and everything kind of works much more interoperable than it does today. I think that's a really hidden power and will unleash tremendous a lot of value if we can get that going. I think buildingSMART should spend a lot more time pushing this, but question to LTA.
Okay, so when we set off to develop inside our collaboration platform, right, it was in the 2019, right? This is before the OpenCV came to a bit more propagated in the industry. And we will, at this juncture, we are still relying on what we have at the moment. Open APIs and whatnot, we will work with our vendors and our other software vendors to see how this can contribute to integrate with Fulcrum, right?
Yeah, I can answer that as well. For me, so one of the things that we made a conscious decision on is that the contractors and consultants also, not just relevant for asset owners and operators, but also for consultants and contractors. They have many subcontractors that we use in different systems. So what we've actually done is, I don't care what system you use when you're actually delivering what you need to deliver to me, as long as it actually fits into this mold. So you drop it up and drop it somewhere, we'll pick it up and process. So in other words, that's like a package. It's almost like a BCF where it has a manifest and it has a bunch of attachments. The manifest will actually say what the context is, right? In relation to that package. So in fact, actually, that allows any CDEs to talk to this system openly. You don't
Is
have
that the OpenCV spec or is it something else?
The CDE spec was not available when we did this. So,
But even before that, actually, what we explained earlier, is that in Singapore, we operate within a very tight security layer. So any external parties who's going to work with LTA or any government agency has to cross that what we call IM8 policy, and it's a cybersecurity kind of policy, and you have to work in a government commercial cloud, and that is something essential. So unless the value chain, the other software vendors are able to deploy the services on our government commercial cloud, then I think the integration is a lot more clearer. If they are on the private commercial cloud, it's still possible, but just that there are a lot more intricacies to consider in embracing that OpenCV. So that's what Ratnakar mentioned when we on the journey.
it's not just an open CDE, it's about basically a lot of smarts that need to go with it as well, right? CDE on its own won't solve the problem. The sophistication that an enterprise needs, there's a lot of bells and whistles. I mean, like I said, right, the fine grained kind of permissions. If I'm a contractor in contract A and I'm a subcontractor in contract B, and I'm actually a line-wide contractor in a different context, a line-wide contractor should be able to see what all contracts, anything related to that specific system-wide thing across all contracts versus basically the discrete contractor who's in that discrete contract should only be able to see what's there for you. So There's a lot more sophistication and layers of things in here in terms of the information dissemination and also giving LTA the assurance that when something is approved based on the context, it's in a published state based on ISO 19650 convention, and you can never actually have a duplicate of that within the system anywhere. What it means is you have 200 odd workspaces out there for contractors. Any file that originates once, there's only one copy of that. During the issuances, we give fine-grained permissions to the same copy, we don't copy duplicate it. Right? That's the true essence of 19650. That's the true essence of basically a single source of truth. The minute you take a copy of that file, you give somebody a reference, access to that file, you're breaching the spirit of it. Now put that into perspective, all these like different kind of separations of concerns, how do you then actually configure it? Again, the system shouldn't be in such a way that when your requirements change or when you're in a slightly different kind of contractual arrangement, you don't want to go back and write codes, write software development or engineer it to actually modify how it works. It has to have the level of sophistication to be able to configure those workflows, including the fine-grained permissions, keeping, staying true to the first principles. So there's a lot. So, as part of the SAC member of buildingSMART International, we'll be bringing a lot of knowledge, experience of doing this at scale to buildingSMART. We are here to actually also listen to some.
I'm not sure if I made myself clear or if I've explained the OpenCV API good enough or whatever, but I'm aware of all the complexities and all the layers of security, but I don't see any sort of conflict in that sense. I see all the benefits, but we can do that to another session somewhere. Thanks.
Yeah.
Good. Any other questions or comments? That's one. Please introduce yourself. Yeah, okay. All right, then I use the mic. All right, thank you for a very, yes, Roger, please.
Please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Roger Grant from National Institute of Building Sciences in the United States. So I'm following this and understanding the flow, the workflow that's represented there. It seems in a lot of ways similar to workflows that we experience with the projects that, say, large government agencies use in our country. What I'm trying to figure out is where we, like, say, would require some exchanges to be done using COBE, which I saw in your model there as a way to deliver information. But the use of buildingSMART, of IFC, and the other, maybe data dictionary, I don't quite see where that is where the value of that fits into your workflow, different from a model coming from Revit and coming into your system and being used. I guess I'm trying to understand where the unique aspect of using IFC in the workflow is and how it's providing value to the process, in contrast to what we do similarly, but it's done more with proprietary software applications delivering a model, for example, with maybe the exception of trying, not very successfully, to get a COBE file delivered on a project. Am my question clear enough? I hope.
I will ask if there's anything that I need to clarify along the way.
Which slide would you like to go? You can use the clicker here. Yeah.
Yeah. So I might have to stand up and walk this slide through. So
It's a clicker too. Yeah. If you need to use the laser pointer, it's the middle.
So if you see here,
And use the microphone.
Yeah.
You've got the remote participants too.
no problem. So let's say basically this is the external world they're trying to submit, right? When they submit, when you have external submitting to the agency, what we actually say is you provide both the native and also IFC. So when you're submitting, you know it's intended for a bunch of recipients, right? There's routing and workflow involved to make sure that based on the nature of the submission, it routes to certain people. And you have those people at the top, right? Being able to collaborate on the browser once it reaches them. But the magic of IFC is really what we do with IFC is in here. So on route, when I send it to you and a bunch of people here, before it reaches you, on route, the machine engages. Because it's IFC, because of its openness, we basically extract the geometry and also the parametric information that's in IFCs, in coordinated models. And then we basically allow the machine to kick into it. And the machine does various things with it. So if I'm actually sending it in response to you telling me, hey, you need to move that door from here to there, please resubmit, I will not approve, it's a rejection. So I'll have to resubmit. So when I resubmit, the system detects it, and then it actually generates a differential saying, hey, the previous model, I'm just giving you a very simplistic example here. The previous model, you've given me the doors here. The instruction was the door to be moved from here to here. I got a revision. In my browser, the system's telling me the doors moved. So I color code it. So the ones that if I delete and recreate, it's going to basically be in gray and red or red and green. So you will be able to have the superimposition of the previous in the current model to be able to see the geometrical changes as well as the parametric changes, coupled with any other checks the machine does, including on the geometry as well as the attributes. So basically, the magic starts to happen here, and this wouldn't be possible without actually the open standards. So that's the difference. So when you're doing this across 200 contracts, across all stages, what you effectively get is something that's trusted, that reflects your physical environment. And also, don't forget the fact that these models that are coming in can be originating from different proprietary systems, right?
So will you clarify, all the checking processes and the reporting are done on the IFC formatted
Correct.
model?
Yeah.
Not in any other kind of application or tool?
No.
But, well, there's an application, but the reporting is done on IFC.
I think the program, maybe I missed the mic. I think the progression from about 10 years ago when Singapore was just a BIM-based approach, IFC, it's like what we more familiar can be an additional deliverable. But the current round of LTA and building construction authority is that IFC is the basis where a lot of the model checking and other workflows are being done. I'm conscious of time. We welcome those who want to stay behind for additional discussion.
So may I ask that in the remaining 2 minutes, can I ask both Samuel and Ratnakar to maybe share a quick advice, tips, sharing takeaway with the audience? Maybe Ratnakar and then Samuel. And then I think we can stay behind. If anybody would like to chat more, we can chat beyond 3 p.m. But Ratnakar, any final advice, tips for us?
Yeah, I mean, we strongly believe in that. Basically, you guys are the smart ones. We are not. I mean, especially I'm not the smart one. So we want to be able to basically democratize innovation. We want to be able to work with you guys and enable and equip you guys so that you guys see the possibilities that we are not seeing. Right? You have your own experiences. You have your own challenges. You know, within the spectrum of what we do. So it's about you and your teams. It's not about us. It's about us basically an enabler playing a role, whether it's for ATA. I mean, that slide that you've seen there earlier where I explained how, you know, we enable collaboration and the foundation the platform offers is exactly the same pattern that the regulatory agency in Singapore uses. It's not a different system. The same fulcrum powers what asset owners and operators do. it actually is used by many consultant contractors and manufacturers. And the entire national regulatory platform. So the same pattern, coming back to what I said, is complex problems need simple solutions, not complex problems. That is.
Complex problems need simple solutions. We are not smart unless we can work out together. How about Sammy? Yeah.
Well, to me, said we need to be clear with what we want to achieve in the long run. Well, what we do now today is just moving to the construction stage, but we want to be certain of what we're going to lay the foundation for what we use BIM for in our operation at the stage. In our context, 60 BIM, in American counterparts to say 70 BIM. We would like to really be clear of how the benefits can reap in the long run. And it's only, to us, it's only possible with open BIM because I think proprietary software, every 3 years it will upgrade and it takes a lot of effort to keep on changing it. But we will probably have to develop a strategy on how to ensure that offering the native files are set of relevance across the life cycle of the assets. But meanwhile, I think open BIM with this transparency in the roadmap and whatnot, we can better plan for how we can really optimize the true digital nature of the file format in the long run.
Well, in my closing, I want to thank everybody for taking the time or the contributions. We hope this does not end at this minute. As Ian mentioned, I think as we all need to understand the stories beyond the headline, beyond the keynotes, for us to rationalize processes, business impacts, values together as a community. The journey is only beginning. So, and I think it's one of the earlier times to join, the initial times to join buildingSMART community. So definitely a welcome to join the buildingSMART community. I think as Harvard and many mentioned, we hope to grow and to learn and to advance, be that open CBD, be that working more globally with other submission processes, what we all can do together. So thank you once again, Ratnakar and Samuel, and to every single one of those of you joining in person and online. Thank you.